Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections since we are recording it for radio broadcast on the Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. You're welcome to post your questions and comments during the session, and we'll try to answer them online. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Jason Miller, Executive Editor at Federal News Network.
Welcome to the discussion. My guests today are Justin Herman, the Emerging Citizen Technology Office Lead at the General Services Administration, Adam Goldberg, the Executive Architect in the Office of Financial Innovation and Transformation at the Treasury Department, Harrison Smith, the Acting Chief Procurement Officer for the IRS, and Jim Walker, the Director of Public Sector Marketing for UiPath. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Let me set a little context for our discussion. The Office of Management and Budget expects the first progress reports from agencies on how they're moving employees off of low-value work and to high-value work sometime before the end of March. Agencies are on the hook to tell OMB their progress in terms of FTE, full-time equivalent hours, shifted to high-value work. OMB says if agencies implement significant shifts in resources that are not amenable to reporting in FTE hours, then they should report cost savings instead. And OMB says if agencies use alternative methods, such as number of pages of reporting eliminated when neither FTE hours nor cost savings is feasible. This is a key piece to the shift OMB wants agencies to make through the use of robotics process automation to reduce repetitive and administrative costs. And then there's a lot of hope around RPA as well and other emerging technologies. Deloitte's Center for Government Insights said in 2017 that RPA could save agencies as much as $41.1 billion over the next 7 years. But it's not just as simple as implementing software and changing processes. Research from Gartner offered 8 recommendations for organizations before implementing RPA. Among those, identify and quantify the opportunities to use RPA to support digital transformation. Support the rule-based standardized processes that cross multiple systems, which need a non-intrusive approach to automation. Identify alternative existing tools or services and evaluate these solutions in parallel with RPA or use a hybrid solution and look to future AI-based options. And then on top of all that, there's the security factors agencies have to keep in mind. So as agencies, and there are many, begin to test and pilot RPA tools, these are just some of the things that are important as they move forward. And that's also where our guests are going to come in. They're going to tell us about their experiences and some of the potholes to avoid. I'm going to start at the far end of the table with Justin. Now, Justin, GSA is both using RPA, but you guys are also offering maybe the broader perspective on RPA to help agencies who are interested. So give us an update of where you guys are at and how are you helping agencies?
Well, just like you said, there's a couple of different roles that's being played right now. And in the use itself, one of the more exciting programs to look at is in our CFO shop, the Chief Financial Officer, who you don't often think of an office like that as having exciting emerging technologies and things like that. But what it has is ways in which processes can be greatly improved. And they see that, and that's what makes it such a ripe area for deploying these. So right now they have 6 bots deployed that have freed up 17,000 labor hours and are looking at more. And basically the strategy, and we see this across a number of agencies, is multi-phased, where at first you start deploying small scale, 5, 6, test it out, start opening up and looking at not just the technology itself available, because hopefully as we discuss a little bit, it's an opportunity to relook our processes themselves. So again, this is not just about the technology itself, it's about process improvement in government. And then of course, once you learn these lessons, once you understand how your operations do business better and where these opportunities are, we look to phase 2, which is enterprise level implementation, where instead of just having some bots here and there, you have a secure cloud environment that is able to then deploy many, or as we call on commercial scale bots that you see in some agencies. Like right now, we've been doing research looking into around 3 dozen agencies that have either tested or deployed on a small scale RPA. And a lot of people, they don't even know that government on such a scale is looking at it. So that's why we want to build up for FY19 and make sure that if it's at the tipping point and agencies are coming to the table and wanting to not just embrace an emerging tech, but rethink how we do business itself, and RPA could be a part of that, then we want to make sure that agencies have the best options available, not just for knowledge behind it, but acquisitions vehicles to buy it and partners at the table in order to make that happen.
the GSA example at the CFO's office, I've heard your CFO talk just recently at an event, and it's a fascinating story, but the number that stands out to me is the 17,000 labor hours, and I know Gerard talked about adding more bots and doing more with it. Is that they are, though, not typical? What you're seeing more from your seat within GSA Emerging Technology is this 1 or 2 bots, or are they more typical?
Well, I'm sure if anybody else wants to jump in on that, but every organization you're going to see different, and it comes down to and you had mentioned OMB and how we're supposed to focus more on high value work than low value work. That's part of the analysis process, and one of both the benefits and the challenges is there's no shortage of processes in government that can be fixed or improved. So how are we identifying and prioritizing? Because we know that we can make things faster, but sometimes it's just a matter of making it better as well.
Adam, I know that the example was warm to your heart as a former person in the financial world at OMB and now Treasury. Treasury's also been out and ahead of using bots. Maybe talk about your experiences so far and the strategy.
Sure. Our journey really is going down 2 paths right now. We started roughly a year ago. Path 1 was to first learn about the technology and put it into our platform at the Fiscal Service. So just make sure that we could get through all the security requirements in a test environment to make sure that we could understand the implications of that technology. The second path was more of a human capital side, which is trying to understand what are the appropriate processes to start with, which may not actually be the most appropriate processes to automate in the long term, but we wanted to make sure that we understood that technology. So the pilot approach started with moving it into our test environment, identifying 7 business processes that we wanted to test the automation for, and then actually executing against that. And we've been quite successful in that effort, and in fact, we're taking those robots and moving them into our production environment. And they're doing things like reconciliations, account code entries, system regression testing, very important activities, but things that have a high amount of human intervention within them. The end part is now we really want to promote what we've been doing and serve as a catalyst, I think similar to GSA, and look at other agencies exploring the technology and adopting it as well.
As you went through the first phase of that and looked at, okay, how to identify processes, my understanding from doing some research with Bureau of Fiscal Service over the last year or so is it was some hesitation, and then once you proved it once, wow, the doors open. Everybody was excited. Did you start seeing that once you showed that it could work and how it could work?
It actually started before that, because the first thing we did was sit down with the group that was going to have some of their activities automated and said, we want you to choose what you want to automate. And I think that immediately took away the concern from these folks as to, whether this was something that was being forced upon them or this was something that they had to had the opportunity to have a say in long term. The other nice thing about what's happening at the Fiscal Service is this has been going on in our shared service organization, which is in fact in a growth mode right now because more agencies are searching out shared services. So there's lots of new opportunities coming into the door, but also RPA serves as an additional new type of capability that they get involved with.
Jim, UiPath obviously has been one of the contractors, one of the vendors that have been out in front of this, if you will, wave. And I'll call it a wave because over the last 20 years that I've been covering the federal government, there's not been a technology that I would maybe offer that has been taken up this quickly. There's always the let's dip our toe in it and see how it happens. And just as you heard from Justin, 36 different instances that they already know across the agencies. What are you seeing from your customers? What is the trend beyond more and more?
Well, I'll piggyback a little bit on what Justin said about the toe in the water and the agencies doing their pilots. That's just good stewardship of taxpayer money. And so each agency being a little different, each agency has a slightly different policy on security, a different way that they want to manage people, unions and things like this, that lead them to say, let's try it. But we have seen a tremendous uptick when they do see it, and the employees are saying, can it also do this? This is not one where the leadership of any of the agencies that we work with, 28, 30 right now, the leadership is saying they're going to have it whether they want it or not. A GSA's story up in New York where they downloaded the software for free, put it on their personal laptops and showed it to their administrator who said, we need some of that. The work that Jennifer and the team is doing out in Parkersburg was complemented by the stuff that Treasury did with their incubator program, where they put 5 teams together and said, just go find some software and see how that software works for you. I mean, really more of a bottoms-up versus a top-down type of approach. I do think it's probably time, given the president's request for a 5% across-the-board cut, it's time for the leadership to start looking at RPA to say, for the first time ever, let's do a cut and improve our service delivery. Let's increase our ability to do more work. Let's give better service to the citizenry. Let's do cross and interagency activities better, all at the same time when we're cutting.
It's interesting that you talk about the bottoms-up approach. For me, again, looking back, a lot of the changes in technology has been a top-down over the years, whether it's cloud, cloud first, or whether it was cybersecurity, we had a breach, now do it, do better with cyber. Do you think it's bottoms-up because the employees, from your experiences, are saying there's just not enough of us? And even if we went on a hiring spree, which it wasn't going to happen, there was a hiring freeze, that agencies would, if you will, they saw that the benefits were real, and they recognized that they weren't going to get more people. So, okay, how do we do the work that we have because the work's growing? I mean, is that where it's bottoms up in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, they're able to access it in a way that you couldn't access software 15 years ago, right? And so they're able to.
Because it's open source, or some of it is, or because
the different vendors, in our case, we've got an academy that you can log on to and do experiential type coding, along with another 100,000 people who are enrolled in it and collaborate. So for this new generation, if you will, the millennial group that is used to a collaborative world, they thrive on that, right? And in addition to that, it does allow for me to take that work that nobody pridefully goes home and says, as Treasury, we used to do a purchase reconciliation every morning, and it would take 2 hours, and they now can do that in 11 to 12 seconds. They didn't want to do that work, but it was necessary to do the actual mission of Treasury, which was to get the reconciliation done. We free people up now to do people work and give the robotic work back to the bots.
I don't know who doesn't want to do reconciliation. I want to get to Harrison, but quickly, Justin, jump in.
I just wanted to piggyback on that. One of the things is you don't have to be an expert coder in order to implement this. And that's one of the big things that we see and why it's catching on with excitement. I know if I'm having a rough day at work, I can go up to the CFO shop and just be instantly excited. Because again, it's what we always said good tech was going to be, which is empowering the federal workforce. And while obviously, especially once you get to the enterprise level, you'll have it operated by IT. This is something that truly could be understood, deployed, and actualized by the program managers themselves. And in a way, and it's kind of funny that disparity between usually having questions on RPA on how it's threatening to people, but once things are actually deployed, it's a freeing and empowering thing that helps us do our jobs better.
I don't think everyone's ever said, I go to the CFO shop and get excited at them. Harrison, jump in. You're the kind of maybe bring it from a different angle, the procurement side, and how are you guys starting to look at robots to improve the procurement process?
No, I mean, I think that although from the CFO shop, people don't go and get excited, but from a procurement standpoint, man, everybody comes in, high fives all around. No, I mean, I think that what you're hearing is a fairly consistent reference. It's not just technology, right? It's the manner in which we take a look at how things are done, the mindset behind it. I mean, from our perspective, over the past 5 or 6 or 7 years, we've lost 40% of the workforce. We still process roughly 10,000 transactions and issue roughly $2.5 billion in obligations. Pretending that you can do the same type of work in the same fashion and get the same outcome with 40% less resources is, to put it lightly, asinine. You have to be able to change and to shift. And what we've done is the same kind of bottom up. Let's see if it works, right? But I think one of the fundamental differences with RPA and this type of technology that we're seeing today is that you've got a situation where you can take off a relatively small bite, right? It all has to do with it's fairly affordable. right? And from a procurement standpoint, one of the ironies that drives us to do things better is that if we can't figure out how to purchase emerging tech, test it and deploy it in fairly straightforward manner, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. If it took us 12 to 18 to 24 months to buy RPAs, that would be completely ironic. So I mean, what we looked at a set of transactions that there really is, it's an important task because it needs to be done, right? But at the end of the day, I don't need an individual to sit and go into a public website and type in an 8 to 12 digit number 10,000 times a year. It's just not something that I need them to do. They need to be able to track that, to do the appropriate things in accordance with the regulations. But if a bot can generate that analysis and say, hey, you're good, go ahead and process the paperwork here, or hey, you need to take a look at this. The ROI that we're talking about, the return on investment, is roughly 10x relative to the cost in the man hour. So it's something where we may save up to 7,500 to 10,000 man hours a year. So it's an ongoing basis. And I think once we get to that point as organizations, you create this virtuous circle, right? There's the concept of theory of constraints and those types of things. But you've got a situation where there's a lot of other work that I could be doing. I could be engaging with my customer earlier. I could be engaging with industry earlier. I could be engaging with whomever it is. And freeing up our time and resources to do those things which are more valuable and often, frankly, more exciting for the individuals who are involved. I think it's a fundamental change in how we do business.
Harrison, talk maybe a little bit how you guys are, what's your strategy right now at the IRS? How many bots, or do you have them in production yet, or still in testing?
So, great question. So we are definitely at the nascent stages here. We awarded a contract last year for a singular bot, and frankly, procurement is the guinea pig. So this is one of the areas where folks have actually gone through in terms of cloud deployment and technical checks and security checks. That's what we're going through right now. What I'm really excited about is the fact that I've seen sometimes the way these types of technology are deployed, we say, okay, come test it in 9 to 12 months. I think our first test is next month to make sure that it works for the user and to make sure it works from a security standpoint. Marrying up those capabilities, I think, is really, really important. So we're definitely in the nascent stages trying to figure out how it's going to work best. But they're really, from a procurement organization standpoint, there are all kinds of ideas that we have. CFO, we were actually talking about it earlier today, personnel security clearance processes. You know, occasionally, our IT systems don't talk to one another. So being able to manage that, not with somebody taking a piece of paper or taking a printout from one system and typing it into the next, there's not a whole lot of value add there. It needs to be done, but the more we can find an efficient way to do that, the more we can free up resources to really attack things that are going to support our customer.
All right, there's plenty to talk to. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll jump back in. You're listening to the panel discussion, Government and Robotics, the shift from low value to high value work, sponsored by UiPath on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network.
Do you know why robots are here? So we are free to do the things we love. So we don't spend hours and days and weeks doing one tedious thing after another.
The truth is, this is the ultimate collaboration. Robots do all the boring, backroom stuff, so we don't have to. We can dream big and push ourselves to be our best versions, so that everyone progresses, everyone wins.